As they say, leaders are readers. So if you're a CEO, founder, entrepreneur, I'm going to share with you 5 books every entrepreneur should read. Starting with number 5, Laws of Human Nature. If you ever read any of Robert Greene's books, they're phenomenal. But for this one, it's really about understanding human nature. And whether you're in any type of business in general, it's all about people. Whether it's your customers, your clients, your team members, you're constantly dealing with people. So learning to understand them, other personalities, as well as it'll learn to understand yourself better. In business, you're managing people, you're negotiating with people, you're networking, you're branding yourself. So learning more about human nature, how people react, the different personalities, the different triggers, it'll allow you to become better at managing or dealing with people, which you're doing on a daily basis. And so one of the quotes that I found very interesting from this book was, "We are all self-absorbed, obsessed with our own world. You must train yourself to see their point of view, cultivating empathy, letting go of preconceptions, and adapt your ideas." So what does he mean by that? In life, we can be in our own heads. A lot of the times we're thinking about ourselves. How does this affect us? What does this mean for us? How do we perceive it? But when you're in business and when you want to really allow the opportunity for people to hear out your ideas or to grow connections with people, you have to put yourself in their shoes. You have to speak their language, because that's how they're going to relate or understand or want to hear you out. And so it's important to know that we are, as human beings, self-absorbed. We, for the most part, think of ourselves versus others. So we have to learn to put ourselves in other people's perspectives and other people's shoes more, and allow them to be heard and empathize with them. And with that, you will grow relationships with people. People will want to follow you, but you have to first know that we are initially self-absorbed, and it's a muscle that you can train in order to give people more opportunities to be heard or to feel heard and to empathize with them. And if you're a woman in business or in a male-dominant industry, you're going to want to hear this, because I'm sure this has happened to you or you relate to it. I recently, let me share a story with you. I work in Bette David Consulting, a male-dominated team for majority men in leadership, which I admire. I love them, respect them to the utmost degree. And I am one of 2 women on my team. Shout out to Lay. Some of the guys on my team have told me that I can be a little cold, that I come off not empathetic, and I was processing this. So I'm like, man, I come off cold? Like, I don't come off as if people can relate to me. And so I was reflecting on this, because obviously I want to be a leader. I want people to feel as if they're heard around me. And as I was processing this with Robert, who's our HR director, and the reason for that is because he's just a really smart guy, and he's really philosophical and psychological. And so I was sharing that with him, and he's like, Taylor, I don't see it that way. Part of the reason women become leaders and that they're able to compete at the highest level, it's not that they're cold, but some of those traits or that personality, that more assertiveness, is necessary when you're dealing with men. It's how you earn respect. And so that was a small snippet of our 30-minute conversation. But if you're a woman and you're in business, or in a male-dominated industry, it's a good chance that you may be called that by some of your colleagues. And as I was processing this, I read it in the book, Laws of Human Nature, and it said, chapter 10, it was about envy, and they tapped into the story of Cain and Abel. And it says, natural talents are prone to envy. Women who achieve success are more prone to attracting envy, said to be too cold, too ambitious, not feminine enough. A man who feels inferior to a woman breeds envy and hostility, not admiration. Admiration is different than envy. Love and envy are not mutually exclusive. So what does that mean? Now, I'm not saying my colleagues are envious of me. I'm sharing this because women may be told this when you are super ambitious. You have a lot of masculine energy like myself. You want to compete at the highest level. And therefore, if you're doing better than men, they might resort to calling you too cold. Now, there's two ways to look at this. That may be the truth. And for me, it is something I need to work on. I need to work on being more empathetic and hearing people out, being more intentional and when I'm speaking to someone, giving them my undivided attention. So heard, that is something that I do need to work on. Also knowing if you're a woman and you're competing against men and you want to be a leader, there are going to be situations where you're probably called too cold or too ambitious or not feminine enough. And not to take that as a negative, it could be the reason you're able to compete. It could be those characteristics that allow you to compete against men, because a lot of how I am, if I was a man, would they say the same thing to me? I don't know. But it's just something to be aware of, not something to take in the negative. It's something to be aware of, and you can either learn from and evolve. There are areas that I need to evolve when it comes to that, but also knowing that and not allowing it to get into my head and make me think negative of myself, knowing that it's part of human nature. And so it's a really great book, like I said, to understand people around you, to understand yourself. And Robert Greene is a fantastic author who takes an idea and then navigates it through different stories for you to comprehend it in different circumstances, and then actionable items to really either change or to grow within that area. So number 5, Laws of Human Nature, highly recommend. That leads me to number 4, which is Barbarians to Bureaucrats. This book, if you like history, if you like psychology, philosophy, and business, it is an incredible book. It wouldn't look like it when you're looking at the cover, but it's absolutely amazing. I love history, I love psychology, philosophy, and I love business. So all of it, I enjoy. It breaks it down in the cycles of business and relates it to the cycles of history and how governments went from like revolution, freedom during each phase to then more of the bureaucratic, aristocratic. So I'm going to go through what they were and kind of give you a little bit of insight, but they compare that government cycle to business. And so it starts with the prophet. That is the visionary. They create the breakthrough, the human energy to propel the idea forward. So that's the visionary. For us here at Valuetainment, Patrick, he is a prophet. He has the vision, he's the driver, and he cultivates that idea and pushes it forward throughout not only the team, but the community. Then you have the barbarian. The barbarian is the leader of crisis and conquest who commands the corporation on the march of rapid growth. When you're in startup phase in general, but specifically when you're in startup phase, who on your team is willing to bust through walls? Who on your team is that barbarian that they're going to get it done, and they're going to get it done no matter what? And so having that, being in that phase where you're not yet established, you're still breaking down barriers, you need those barbarians on your team. And I feel that Valuetainment right now is in between barbarian and builder and explorer, which is the next phase. The builder and explorer, the developers of the specialized skills and structures required for the growth who shift from command to collaboration. So now you've fought your way through, you're starting to see the momentum. Now you have to create those structures. You have to start exploring new markets. You have to start developing new technologies to continue building and exploring and moving the company forward. Then you have the administrator, the creator of integrating systems, structure, who shifts focus from expansion to security. So now maybe you're developing your own technology. Now you're looking at other ways to optimize efficiency, to automate a lot of areas where it's less manual, more automated. You're getting that administrative phase into play. Then you have the bureaucratic phase, the imposer of tight grip of control, who crucifies and excels new prophets and barbarians, assuring the loss of creativity and expansion. So now as you grow, there starts to be more layers of management, more layers of red tape, more rules, regulations. And this becomes the bureaucratic phase, where everything has to be signed off on. And the people that have ideas, they're creative, they're motivated, they feel that they're caged in because everything is going through approval and there's so many layers of bureaucracy that nothing's getting done. This is at the phase where when you see in government, for example, things go very slow. The bills are thousands of pages long. There's not as much transparency. There's not as much urgency. So this is when you start going into the bureaucratic phase. Then you have the aristocratic phase. In the aristocratic phase, they are the inheritors of wealth. alienated from those who do productive work, who is the cause of rebellion and disintegration. So the aristocratic phase, they don't even know what it was like during the startup phase. They don't even know what it was like to build the organization or the country that they now have power over. And so when you're an aristocratic, you can't even relate to those who've done the work. You can't even relate to being in the trenches. You can't even relate to what, if you were looking at a historical standpoint, to the peasants or your average citizen, because you've been inherited into the power, into the level of leadership that you're in, but it wasn't earned. And so you definitely never want to be in the aristocratic phase, because when that comes, that's when historically, that's where you get revolutions. For business, that's now you're on decline. Now you're on your way down to bankruptcy. And so they go through each phase and they talk about an individual throughout the company through each phase. To have these types of personalities come into the business is super critical. And it's the synergist, the leader who maintains the balance, who continues the forward motion of a large, complex structure by unifying and appreciating the diverse contributions of the prophet, barbarian, builder, explorer, and administrator. So they're able to take all these different personality types, bring them together, and move the vision forward. And the same HR director that we have here, who's actually just got promoted to a C-suite position, Robert, he is that synergist here. Patrick as well. They're really good at relating to all different personality types, tapping into their potential, tapping into their strengths, navigating conversations. So it's important to have that type of personality within your company, because they have to be able to be the glue of managing the barbarian, who's going to go until, they're kind of gangster. They do what they got to do to get the job done. The builder and explorer, the administrator, these are all different types of personalities that having a synergist come together and be that glue is super important through each phase of business. It's a super interesting book, how it talks about historically, business, the corporate cycle, and historical cycle. Really interesting book. Highly recommend, because each business goes through these. Goes through these phases. You have the ideation, the profit, the startup, to the barbarian. You're getting it done. You're 18, 20-hour days, whatever it takes. Builder, explorers, your expansion now, administrator, systems, and then you may start getting these levels of leadership that are starting to get out of touch with the rest of the company, and that's what you have to be aware of. And so highly recommend it. You can also break down the percentages of where you fall between prophet, barbarian, builder and explorer, administrator, synergist. I did it for myself. It's super interesting. So maybe I'll share it with some of you guys. So now this was for my book report last year, but I'll share with you what I believe some of my personality traits reflect. So for the prophet, 15%, I do believe myself to be a big dreamer. I like ideas, creativity. Barbarian, 30%. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll definitely work. Work ethic is not something I lack. Builder and explorer, always looking for new opportunities. Administrator, 5. Now I have that skill set. I could be good at administrative work, but I don't like to do it. So, and then synergist, 15. I feel I get along with a lot of people, but I don't know. I'll have to go back on that. I can work well with a lot of different types of personalities, but I also, and you obviously want to avoid the bureaucratic and aristocratic. That's the ego, assertiveness. They're out of touch. So if you have bureaucrats or aristocrats in your company, you might want to rethink those individuals within your company. But we'll definitely recommend the book. That leads me to number 3, Unreasonable Hospitality. This is probably the book that Patrick recommended the most this year, and it is a fantastic book. The author is Will Guidara. He took his restaurant in New York from just an average restaurant to a 3 Michelin star to number 1 in the world. Patrick is actually going to have him at his upcoming event, the Vault Conference, where there's going to be 3,000 CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, all different industries, all across the globe, here in South Florida, to learn, develop, to network. An incredible, life-changing event, especially if you're a business owner. And Will Guidara is going to be one of the individuals that Patrick is going to be interviewing, because his book was so monumental of shaping the way you think of how to approach business. And now he's in the service industry, but it's really about just servicing your people And that's from a client perspective, to a customer perspective, to an employee perspective. The idea of going above and beyond for your people. And so some of my takeaways here, and I'll share with you a few different ones. There's so much in this book that I could tap into. But he talks about from a leadership perspective. From a leadership perspective, there's two different types of people that leaders can give their time to. And it's a leader's responsibility to identify the strengths of the people on their team, no matter how buried their strengths are. So as a leader, you have to be intuitive, know how to ask the right questions, give tasks to figure out where people's strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And for those who aren't trying, you're not going to give them their time. But for those who are trying and may not be succeeding, but they're doing the work, they're putting forth the effort, those are people that you'd want to give your time to. And so tapping into leadership, being more intuitive with your team and being able to pick out the strengths, in addition to what he went into too, is talking about the meetings within the organization. Meetings fill the gas tank before you ask your team to go out and fill the gas tanks of the people that they're serving. So each time you have a meeting with your team, that's an opportunity to re-recruit your people, to cast the vision and to fill up their tank on what the vision is, what the mission is, why they're doing what they're doing. So then when they're servicing your customers and other people within the organization, they're then pouring back into them. So meetings are super important when it comes to protecting the energy, giving a call to action, providing another opportunity to have buy-in from your people, because that energy, that emotion is then going to be poured out to the people that they speak to after they leave that meeting. And so having meetings that are structured, managing expectations, telling them why they're doing what they're doing, giving recognition, re-recruiting your people. These are all meetings are something that everyone has in business, and they're super important. So he gives a good outline on how they went about their meetings that is super impactful, because we have meetings every single day. And I will say, when we meet with and I feel this, like we're in a meeting every single day. If my energy's high and like the stories were on point, the vision, the mission, what we're doing, I'm excited. When I go out on the phones and I'm speaking to clients, it's that I'm pouring that back into them. Like, oh my God, we just got out of this meeting with Patrick. You won't believe what we have going on here in Valuetainment. We're going to be the biggest media company with the most influential consulting firm. Let me tell you why. Boom, boom, boom. That energy that was poured into me is now being poured into those who I'm on the phone with. Versus we're in a meeting, I don't know what the purpose of the meeting is, kind of confused. Energy went from like here to here, here to here, public, like kind of all over the place. I get on the phones and I'm just, that energy is felt. And so it's communicated, because I'm not as fired up. I'm not as clear. There's the call to action wasn't as concise and clear that it ought to be for me to then have direction on how I want to go about the rest of my day and pour into those who I'm speaking to. So meetings are super important. And also, I want to share one of the stories that they talk about in the book. They talk about when he was at a restaurant that, or in the book, when someone came to their restaurant, they had someone who was flying in and they wanted to get a hot dog and they weren't able to get the hot dog. And so someone from the team overheard that. They went out of their way to go get a hot dog in New York to bring them to their table. And that made those people's whole experience. And it's a little thing like a hot dog, obviously not an expensive item. So you don't always have to think that going above and beyond for clients or people on your team is like some extravagant expense. It's just being thoughtful. It's just listening. It's just realizing, asking questions and listening to know what drives people and what people care about, and then making a conscious effort to deliver on that. And so that's part of going above and beyond. There's so much in that book. Highly recommend it. And if you're interested in seeing Patrick interview Will Guidara and be around 3,000 big thinkers, entrepreneurs, wouldn't miss the Vault Conference, August 30th through September 2nd here in Hollywood, Florida. I'll put some information in the link below. If you're interested in joining us, let us know, or let me know. And that brings me to my second book, which is none other than Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. And no, I'm not just saying this because he's my CEO and founder. There's a reason it was #1 bestseller in business. And there's a reason why he has grown and his notoriety has just escalated recently. It is such a good book, and there's many reasons for it. Part of it is it gives you clarity on who you want to be. Not everyone is meant to be a number one. Maybe you're a number two in business, and that's okay, because you think about all the big organizations and all the companies like Microsoft and Apple, the number twos still did very well for themselves. You look at the book or you watch the movie Air about Nike and Michael Jordan. The person who changed the course of Nike and who we know of it to be today, he wasn't the number one. He wasn't the CEO or founder. He wasn't even Michael Jordan. It was Sonny, who was an entrepreneur who believed in himself and the vision so much that he drove his idea forward. And he is the reason we know of Michael Jordan and Air Jordan and Nike to be the brand that they are today. That wasn't the number one. That was the number two. That was an entrepreneur. And so that could be you. Who do you want to be? Finding clarity. Maybe you are that number one. And so he'll allow you to process that and give you that formula to process that. Figure out who you want to be and what it's going to take to get there. Because then the strategy, helping entrepreneurs process issues, reason, ways, proven strategies that he's implemented over decades of learning how to go from being a salesperson to a sales leader to a founder and a CEO, having one office with 66 agents back in 2009 in California, to then selling the company last year, 2022, with 40,000 agents across the US for over $250 million, being 86% shareholder. That doesn't just happen by accident. That's through leadership development. That's through recruiting and attracting top talent, creating compensation structures that drive revenue, drive EBITDA, and maintain that top talent. It's through proven systems, strategies, innovative campaigns, all of that formula of how he built that company, and now is doing it again here at Valuetainment much quicker, where we are going to be the largest media company. We are going to be the most influential business consulting firm, and eventually will disrupt the education system. Those strategies, those tactics are all discussed through this book. He also gives you tactics through growth periods, the good times and the bad times. In times like this, where there's a lot of uncertainty into the marketplace, it's not the time to go through business alone. You have to constantly be developing, looking for new strategies, networking with people. And so it's not the time to try and figure it out. It's a time to be with other entrepreneurs and strategize together. And then he goes over skills to develop on how to build the right team, on leadership, on communication, on power plays, the art of leveraging your advantages, negotiation. There's so much in this book. And if you're a CEO and if you're a founder, you're not really looking for motivation. You're motivated. You built a business. You have family. If you're looking for motivation, there's books out there for that. This isn't that book. This book is for those who aren't looking for motivation. They're looking for proven systems and strategies. They want effective formulas to speed up the process of success. And that's primarily who we work with. And so if you are a CEO, founder, you're interested in learning more about what we do at Bet David Consulting, or even possible direct mentorship with Patrick or Tom Ellsworth, again, click my link. We can schedule a call. I'd be happy to share with you what we're doing. So that's exactly who we work with. They're not looking for motivation. They're looking to dominate. In order to do that, they need proven systems and strategies and community to get them there. And that leads me to book number 1 is Blue Ocean Strategy. If you haven't read this book as an entrepreneur, you have to do it. It's all about competing in non-contested markets, because everyone's looking on how to compete with their competitors in red oceans, is what the book calls, because it's a contested marketplace. How do you find a new market, which they consider a blue ocean? And they go through a quadrant that it allows you to process your business this way. And it's eliminate, raise, reduce, create. Eliminate, which factors that the industry has long competed on should be eliminated. Raise, which factors should be raised well above the industry standard. Reduce, which factors should be reduced well below the industry standard. Create, which factors should be created that the industry has never offered. And it goes through different examples throughout the book on different companies that have used this strategy. One of them, Yellowtail Wine, reduce. It reduced the complexity of wine. And so it made it really simple for people to understand what they were drinking. create? It created an industry that's never been offered, which was easy drinking wine at a reasonable price. Raise. Which factors did it raise above the industry standard? It raised its budget as far as it reduced the price, and it raised the amount of people that could afford their wines. Eliminate. Which factors did it eliminate? Aging qualities. You could just drink it right away. So everything that made people, the extravagant winos that know all the ingredients, they know the different types of flavors, they're willing to pay, they're willing to have it age. Yellowtail took a whole different approach to get the everyday person to start drinking their wine. And so it has other examples throughout the book, like Circus du Soleil, a lot of great examples, and every entrepreneur, every person should really read this book because it allows you to position yourself in the marketplace where you can create a blue ocean, a new market for your organization. And so to recap the books, and I can go so much deeper in each of them, but you got to read them. Number 1, Blue Ocean Strategy. Number 2, Your Next 5 Moves. Number 3, Unreasonable Hospitality. Number 4, Barbarians to Bureaucrats. And number 5, Laws of Human Nature. Would love to know which books you all recommend as entrepreneurs. These are 5 that I definitely believe every entrepreneur should read. And so, as they say, leaders are readers. I'm actually going to be launching a book club for entrepreneurs. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I will again put it in the link below. I have a newsletter called Business Breakthroughs. And with that, you'll be able to subscribe to my book club. It's going to be launching here in July, and it's going to be going over books that are insightful and of value for entrepreneurs, their mindset, their teams. And it's going to be a great opportunity for a community of like-minded individuals, big thinkers, to come together, to process, to develop, and to grow. And so if you found this valuable, please consider sharing, subscribing, subscribe to my newsletter. And if you have interest in learning more about what we do at Bet David Consulting, here with CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs from all different industries all across the globe, with Patrick Bet David, Tom Ellsworth, and some of our other expert operators, book a call with me. I'll again put some information in the link below. Would love to learn more about you and your businesses. Until next time, I appreciate you joining me, and take care.